welcome back. I know it's been a while, but I'm very happy to be back, and we are going to talk about phrasal verbs. Yay! I know it's difficult. You feel like you see lists and lists, endless lists of phrasal verbs. You don't know how to use them, you don't know the meanings, you don't get the context, and it seems crazy to learn. Don't worry, in this short series of 4 videos, I'm going to explain everything you have to know about phrasal verbs. So first things first, we have to know how to learn them, how to approach them, because phrasal verbs are tricky. The first thing you have to know is that a phrasal verb is a normal verb to look, to think, to get, to work. Normal verbs, but you have a preposition or an adverb after, and sometimes both, preposition plus adverb or vice versa. So it is tricky because 2 reasons. First, you have to remember the meaning with the preposition, and the verb plus the preposition is not the same as the verb only. Let me give you an example. The verb to look, but to look for is completely different. To look for means to search. So just by adding a preposition, it changes the entire meaning of the verb. So that's the first thing you have to remember. You have to remember the meaning with the preposition or the adverb. And the second thing is that you have to remember the correct preposition, because you have tons and tons of phrasal verbs and the same verb with different prepositions as well. For example, you can have to look for, to look after, to look at, to look down, to look up. I'm just thinking about these options, but it's already quite a lot, right? And the problem is that that's the case for all the verbs. So I tried to search on the internet how many phrasal verbs exist in English, but I couldn't find really a precise information. I just found there are more than 10,000. So that's not very precise, we don't know. And maybe it's some kind of massive secret and we don't really know, like nobody knows how many phrasal verbs are there. So the other thing is, when do you actually start learning phrasal verbs? Well, I would say if you are if you don't have an intermediate level, it's a bit useless to learn phrasal verbs. Because to be honest, you can have conversations, you can travel with just normal verbs, knowing vocabulary and verbs that are normal, not with preposition. So you shouldn't stress too much about phrasal verbs. Now, if you want to improve, if you want to be B2, C1, or if you want to understand more serious books, normal English, real English, then it's good to have a look at phrasal verbs, because we use a lot of them in reality. Some of them are very basic and you know them already. For example, to get up. So when you wake up and get up, these are phrasal verbs, So I'm sure you know some already. You should start with the basic ones, of course. Okay, and this brings us to the next point, which is very important and probably why you're here. It's how do you learn phrasal verbs? And I'm going to speak from experience. How did I learn phrasal verbs? I don't know all the phrasal verbs in the world. Let's be clear. But I know quite a lot of them, and I'm going to explain how I managed to learn them and to practice them and to use them in real conversations. So the first thing is you have to think about your daily life. So what do you do on a daily basis? What's your job? What's your hobbies? How is your weekly routine going? So from that, maybe you're going to think of verbs, and you can search if there is a phrasal verb that exists. For example, if you know that you go to the gym, for example, 2 times a week, you could say, I work out twice a week. So instead of saying I practice sports, I do sports, I train, you could say I work out. That's an example. And you can do that with dictionaries, English dictionaries, you know. You just search for synonyms and very often they're going to give you a phrasal verb. And if you start with the ones that are true for you, so like you can actually picture yourself, you have a very specific situation, you will be more likely to remember because it's very personal. And after a while, when you're okay with the practice, so maybe you wrote like a short paragraph, a short story about your week using phrasal verbs, you are comfortable and confident using them because, you know, you've practiced, you use them in the past, in the present, in the future, so you're okay. The hardest part is going to be learning new ones because you will use them less. They will be maybe less clear for you, but you'll still see them when you watch movies or when you read something in English, but it's going to be the hard part. And the best advice I can give you here is learn in context. So here is how you can learn in context. For example, you see a sentence in your book and there is a phrasal verb. You don't really understand it yet. So read the paragraphs, read the sentences before, the sentences after, and try to have a general idea. Try to have the idea that is positive or maybe negative, maybe it's sarcastic. Try to have the general idea, okay? When you have it, you can have a look at the phrasal verb and maybe try to guess a bit more, okay? Is it in the past, in the present? What's the grammar? Maybe have a look at the preposition. Is the preposition or the adverb helping the meaning of the verb? Sometimes it helps, most of the time it doesn't, but you know, you can think about that. When you did everything and you still don't understand, have a look at an English dictionary. Not a French, not another first language, an English dictionary. Google on Cambridge Dictionary the verb. For example, to get by. To get by. And have a look at the definition. Maybe you'll understand the definition in English and you can make up your mind and decide for yourself how you're going to translate it, or maybe you'll just say, okay, in this context it means that, even if it's not very precise in your first language. When I learned English, I was the only French, so I wasn't using lots of dictionaries in French. Nobody told me it means that, this equal this, no. I just had pictures in my mind. I was focusing on the general idea, the context, and sometimes it was okay and I wasn't looking any more into it. So you could do that, and it's a routine and a habit to take, really. But if you don't understand the definition in English and if you can't put this definition into your context in the book, that's when you're going to look it up in French, but only then, or in Spanish or your first language. Okay, but you really need to work on that process, that step-by-step process, to try to analyze the meaning, the context, the idea, so you can make up your mind. You can invent your own definition and context. If you don't do that, and if you open a dictionary or Google it, you will never remember. Like, I promise you, except if you read it every day, if you practice it again, but it will ask you so much work rather than just, okay, I have this, what does it mean? Maybe I can guess, you know. It's so much better for you, a lot better, I promise you. And I have a clear example for you. You might see the phrasal verb to get away with. To get away with. And this is an example of two small words after the verb, preposition and adverb. So you're reading your book, there is a crime because it's a thriller, and so there is a crime but the police can't find the criminal. Okay, so someone is dead in your book, but the police cannot solve the problem. Well, you might read a sentence like that. I can't believe the killer got away with murder. I can't believe the killer got away with murder. So you see this sentence and like, I don't really understand it. Again, read the sentences before, read the sentences after, and try to analyze. Okay, is it positive? Is it negative? What do you think? Then, if you have the general idea but you can't understand the exact definition, Google the definition in English. Okay, and after you go back to your book and you try to understand. So to get away with murder in this context means nobody catches you. You do something bad, but nothing happens. So that's to get away with. And 2 other tips for you to actually remember phrasal verbs is to practice. Okay, so you came across different phrasal verbs. Good, okay. You have to write them down. You have to create sentences. You have to create a picture, a bubble where you see this phrasal verb and directly you can see a situation. Like get away with, murder, you see a murder, you see someone running, maybe. Okay, you have to create these contexts so it's very easy for you to remember them after, you know. And probably at first you will remember just the definition, the meaning, but maybe to use them in real life will be a bit more complicated. That's okay, step by step, okay? And another tip for you is to teach it to someone. So you could teach it to yourself, okay? So close all your books, your everything and say, okay, get away with. I think it means this and this. You know, for example, blah, blah, blah. So you can call someone to do that, or you can teach yourself and explain it to yourself. If you see that you can't explain it, then it's not clear and you have to try again and get back to it. And that's it, guys. I hope you liked all the tips and the strategies that I actually did and took. So I hope this is going to be helpful. Don't forget to comment and subscribe because I will see you in video number 2 on phrasal verbs again. Bye!